Hi, I'm Ken Kessler, and welcome to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. If you're new to this podcast, I want to start by saying thanks for joining us. If you're not new, welcome back. Either way, I'm glad you're here. Now, to avoid any confusion, I want to start off by saying there won't be any music played here. This is a place for conversation. I'll talk about Christmas music and some related topics, sometimes by myself and sometimes with guests. If you're looking for music, just go to soundsofchristmas.com and click on the tree or the player on the front page or on the Listen Now page. We play the best variety of Christmas music all year long. Well, except in October, when we play the best variety of Halloween music. You know, it almost seems like every time I get started on one of these, I pause right at the beginning because I mentioned Halloween music and I'm getting ready to talk to another singer-songwriter who has a song that you might have heard last Halloween. Rehya Stevens, thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Oh, hey, it's a pleasure.
We play Halloween music in October, and people might have heard Abracadabra a couple months ago. So I had to mention that, which is a weird way to get started on a Christmas podcast. But since I had just said about Halloween music, so we'll get to that in just a second. I introduced you as a singer-songwriter, and there are a lot of artists that are described that way, but you really have been a songwriter your whole life.
Yes, pretty much.
I had seen on your website, which is rehyastevens.com, by the way, if you want to go check it out right now. We'll talk more about that in a minute too. But I saw on your website that your dad introduced you to the jazz scene when you were 11. What does that mean?
Well, my dad is a very serious musician, composer, and he just saw in me, I'm sure, the same thing that he recognized in himself just from a really young age. I mean, as a toddler at 2, 3, 4 years old, I was just glued to my record player. And apparently I would just sit and rock in my little rocking chair from 7 a.m. until 1 o'clock in the afternoon and just listen to those records, whatever records we had at the time. And I was just studying them. So he knew that I was very serious about music. I was writing songs all the time, out in the backyard, twirling around, making up songs, recording songs on tape recorders in my room, dating myself by saying that. And he just was doing gigs all over the place, and he started inviting me to sit in with him on gigs, which completely made me nervous. I really didn't like being called up on stage. But by the time I was 11, he started making me basically learn the songs from the American Songbook, because he would say, if you're going to do gigs around town, there's a good satchel of 30 to 40 songs that you're going to need to know from the American Songbook. And you're going to learn them. And we're going to start doing some jazz gigs, and you can add in whatever pop songs you want to do. But these are the real songs that have gone down in history as being the best of the best. And you really should add this to your repertoire. So that's what that means. And it's so funny because those standards, I didn't have the appreciation for them that I do now, but all of those influences certainly helped with making all of this Christmas music. So I'm very grateful.
As a songwriter, I'm sure you like creating and coming up with the music and the lyrics and everything yourself. But have you ever thought about revisiting those standards and recording some of them?
I have, and I have some of those standards around somewhere. I just have to go through all of my archives and find them. I mean, I've recorded a lot of music over the years that I've never released, but I guess my feeling is that there are so many great covers of those standards already. And I have always been compelled to write my own music, even as a singer. I do a lot of live work. I do a lot of recording for other producers. I hear other singers saying, oh, I got this great gig and I'm doing covers of this or that or whatever. And that it just never really has excited me to do a bunch of covers. I mean, maybe, you know what would interest me would be doing standards that were written by female composers. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. So that's coming down the pike someday, but I still have a lot of original music that's just churning away in my brain that I'm really wanting to put out into the world.
You know, for anybody who's listening who is just meeting you for the first time, and you mentioned about writing your own songs and how you're more compelled to do that, that's not just a line or just something that somebody says. Rehya had, and this is another tidbit I got from your website, 10 years ago, you had already written 250 original songs. And
yes, many of them are not very good.
but 250, and that was 10 years ago. I'm sure there's a point where you probably stopped counting, but I would think in 10 years time, as you evolved as a songwriter and as a singer, and you figured out more about what you really wanted to say and how you wanted to say it, that there's been a lot more, but I'm sure there's a point where you just, I'm not McDonald's. I don't want to know how many have been served.
Yeah. I mean, some songs are gateways to better songs, but I have a lot of music a lot of songs that I would love to record and would love to do full albums of, but I guess it's the expense, the recording expenses and the dedication that it takes to make an album. I mean, to make an album, at least for me anyway, I eat, sleep, breathe that project for a good long time before I release it. Usually it takes at least a year and a half, 2 years. And, when you think about any kind of creation that you make, I mean, it takes everything you've got. Whenever I'm choosing what songs I'm going to record for a project, it comes down to what is the most cohesive message for an album. I mean, a lot of people don't even make albums anymore, but I love the album experience because it's like a movie. You can look at it like short stories, but it really is one long snapshot or vignette of a period in your life or something that you're trying to express on behalf of humanity. So my next project is not going to be a seasonal album, but it's I think I've got about 50% of it completed, but now I'm kind of going, okay, what are the missing puzzle pieces of this that's going to make it feel like a really beautiful painting where everything belongs together. I mean, if I had it my way, I would record a new album every 6 months. I mean, that's just how much I write because I write all the time. I mean, I wrote 2 songs last week that I probably will never record, but they were really, really fun to write. And it was just something that I needed to say, but they probably belong with another artist. I'm sure there's stuff in my catalog that I've overlooked that I should have recorded and put out by now. So one of these days I've got to sit around for a good 2-3 days and just put all of that on paper so that I can see it and connect the dots.
You had mentioned that some of these songs that you have written might be better performed by another artist. Have you done that? Have you written songs for others yet?
Yeah, I have. I wrote, I've got a song coming out. It's kind of got like a Tony Bennett Sinatra kind of feel. And I wrote it with a great arranger named Steve Lang, he just blows my mind. He's fantastic. And we wrote that song with Tony Galla in mind, who's a fantastic singer, guitarist. And he's got that kind of Tony Bennett Sinatra kind of swagger. So it feels like one of those big standards like Route 66 or The Way You Look Tonight. And that I'm going to be putting out in the new year in 2022. I co-wrote a song called Ooh La La with a great artist named Dream On. And there's a rap on it with a fabulous rapper named Tamara Bubble, and Pepe Chung produced the track. And that has ended up in one Lifetime movie, and it was in 20 somethings, Austin, a couple of weeks ago, which was exciting. And let's see what else. I have another. What's the other one I'm thinking of? I have to actually go to my website to see what it is. Oh, how bad is that? It's so funny. It's like I'm always on to the next thing. I mean, producers have told me, Rhea, I fall in love with this stuff, and I'm still in love with it, and you're making something new already. But it's just, I don't know, one thing leads to the next and leads to the next. And yeah, the other song is Triumphant, a song called Triumphant that I wrote with an artist named Sonnet Simmons, who's fantastic. And that was picked up for, a couple of T-Mobile ads, an XTB investment commercial. It was in a Lifetime movie. Yeah, so I love writing for other people and with other people in mind, because my voice and the way that I say things is unique to me. But sometimes I just write things that I go, oh, well, I wouldn't say that, but this artist would say that. And it's fun to get out of the Rehya Stevens world and just play. So yeah, I just love making stuff.
Okay. So juxtapose all of that with Vintage Love, which I believe is your first full album.
Yes.
All originals. And was there a story? Was this a mini movie? Was it a slice of your life?
That to me was such a concept album. I had really kind of looked at all of the relationships in my life and how love feels different in different relationships. And there's the 4 levels of love. I don't know if you've heard that. And those songs represent relationships in my life that were one of those 4 levels of love. Eros love is erotic, passionate love. And philia is love between friends and equals, where there's mutual give and take. And then they have it listed here as storge, but it's the love of parents for children. And then there's agape love, which is the love of mankind. So the vintage love concept, to me, it may sound funny, but in my mind, this just kept presenting itself through the making of that album before I even decided what to name it. But it's kind of like vintage clothing will always be in, because it's the stuff that's really high quality and that just weathers any and every season in life. Those are the vintage things that we always want to buy, at least as women. And so vintage love to me represented the kind of love that just never goes out of style. But you have to go through all of these levels of love to reach the point in your own spirit where you feel agape love, that love for mankind, and you see everybody and everything through that lens of compassion. So all of those songs just came out of that intent of showcasing these levels of love. I love that album. I wish that I had known what I was doing marketing wise at the time, because I was I would float out of the studio during the making of that album. It was just, I was levitating. I loved making that music. I'm so proud of that record, but maybe one day it'll see the light of day on a grander scale. We'll see.
Oh, and I hate to even ask this, since I know you have so many other songs in various states of being that you want to get to. Have you ever thought about, this came out in 2013. Have you ever thought about revisiting any of these tracks, maybe re-recording, redoing them a little bit?
Yeah, I actually have thought about that. I love the track Good Man on that album, and it would be really fun to, I love the vocal. I wouldn't want to do anything to that. I love the background vocals, but I might redo the drums, have a live drummer on that. I love Sunday Kind of Love. Gosh, that could be redone so many different ways. Over and Over is, I just wish that we would have kept a more classic sound on that, and not gone so 90s on it, because that had such a gospel, just the essence of that whole song is gospel. So I'd love to redo that and take that in a more gospel direction. A Little Bit of Rain, I wouldn't touch that. I love that one as is. It reminds me of maybe something that Simply Red would have done back in the day. I love LOVE Just As It Is because I loved Janet Jackson growing up. I had such a love affair with the Rhythm Nation record. And that song is it's so obvious. But I love that song. But other people have told me that the mix doesn't seem right on that. I don't know. All I know was that I had such a good time making that record. It was worth every investment of blood, sweat, tears, finances, whatever, just to create it. But yeah, I'd love to revisit some of those songs someday. Actually, Paradise, I did 2 remixes of Paradise that I'm going to put out on my next album. Hopefully that'll be out in 2022. But I had a great producer named Carnell Harrell, who is he's just one of these extraordinary musicians that's just on another level. And he really loved that song and wanted to do a remix. And it's his version of it is it's so good. I can't wait to share that. Can't wait to share it. Well, thank you for asking about this record, by the way.
Oh, you're very welcome. And 180 degrees from that is the Halloween song that I mentioned when we started off. It's not really a Halloween song, but there's magic and spells in the talk of that. So the content makes it fit on an October kind of playlist. Where did Abracadabra come from?
Well, I was working with my 2 friends, John Kubis and Gene Siegel. And Gene Siegel is an extraordinary guitarist who can just do anything. And working with those 2 together, those guys really love rock. They just really, really love rock. And so we were making a bunch of rock stuff for a kind of a group that we started called the Dane Kids that was really meant for sync licensing. And I think we spent an afternoon or 2 on Abracadabra, but it was during October. And I just said, well, what about writing something kind of with a Halloween vibe? And Gene said, nah, I don't want to do that. That's really lame. So I said, okay, well, John, let's have John and I write something like that, because John, if you ask him something, he'll pretty much say yes, which makes working with him so much fun. So I kind of started the melody and John and I started working on the track. And I just thought, you know what, I really, really like this one, but how cool would it be to make this something for kids? What if we were to donate the proceeds of it to Make-A-Wish Foundation? And so that's what we did, because I really thought this is a song that kids would really light up with. I just think that they would understand it the best. So that's what we did. We donated the proceeds to Make-A-Wish Foundation for all of the downloads. And it ended up in a Lifetime movie about 6 months ago called Deadly Seduction, which was kind of cool. So you never know what's going to happen with songs. And early in my career, I remember so many managers that I would meet with and record labels, and they were so totally confused by the satchel of songs that I would bring in. I would say, hey, look, I'm a songwriter first, but I'm an artist. This stuff is for me as an artist. This other stuff is just stuff that I write, and they would still be confused. Still. Yeah, but who are you? Are you a songwriter or are you an artist? And I just don't understand why there can't be both. You can do both. I mean, I would be bored stiff just doing stuff as a songwriter and not expressing myself as an artist, and vice versa. So Abracadabra is very rock, kind of pop rock, which seems out of the box for me. But I felt like when we donated those proceeds to Make-A-Wish and just put it out anyway during the Halloween season. If people get it, great. If they don't, that's fine. I just want to put this out because I think it's a cute song.
I completely agree. I enjoy playing that in October.
Thank you for playing it. I had no idea.
You're very
welcome. That's amazing.
You know, as you're talking about, you know, bringing your stuff in and they're trying to figure out which box you go in.
Yeah,
I hear that kind of thing from so many people. And listening to your music, there's the kind of thing that would make radio programmers nuts, because it doesn't all fit in one thing. It's not pop.
Right.
It's not pop. It's not classic. It's not jazz. It's not gospel. And yet it is all of those things. And that's something that people can get away with when they make a Christmas album.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like those rules go out the window, and you can have a song that is a cover of a James Brown funky 70s Christmas tune, and you can have something that's heartfelt and just a giant ballad, and you can have a bouncy gospel tune, and you can have all these things back to back to back, and that's fine. But if you do that on a regular record, nobody knows what to do with it. And it's just, it's crazy.
I know, but I grew up in a time when artists reinvented themselves with every album they put out. And I always felt like that was so exciting, because rarely were you getting another version of an album that they had already done. It was all an evolution. And for me as an artist, I've got to feel like I'm growing and like I'm doing something new and different. So I don't really understand that, but I guess people just really want more. Maybe people do want more of what they've had before, because the world is moving so fast that maybe that's comforting. I personally like evolution. I prefer that. And I like to reinvent. But with Christmas, I don't want to reinvent Christmas. I want to, I know the way that I want to feel at Christmas time. And this music has just been so satisfying to make, because we all relate to it. So it really feels like, to me anyway, that I'm making it for the world. I'm not just making it for me. I'm making it for all of us. So, and it's a lush musical experience. So it's not like you're limited. Like if you're doing a pop track, well, you don't want it to get too big until the end. You don't want it. There's just there's red tape around other genres, and there's not with Christmas. Right. Really.
And when you said you don't want to reinvent Christmas, I get that. But by the same token, Celebrate, your first full Christmas album, is all originals. And for anybody who didn't know, when you look at the tracks, the titles might make you think it's something else. Happy Holiday, A Christmas Song, Jingle Jangle. You might think that those are different songs. And I don't know if you did that on purpose or if it's just a coincidence.
That's a coincidence. That's a coincidence. When I say I don't want to reinvent Christmas, like I don't want to, I don't want to create a different. I guess what I'm saying is I just get weary of hearing the same Christmas songs every single year.
Yeah,
and I just would like to contribute to, as an extension of that catalog, with some new songs that might stand the test of time and belong in that same family is all of the beloved classics that we know. But I feel like we need some new stuff. So
Yeah.
for it's exciting to me to kind of, I mean, I all I know is my own Christmas experience and other people's Christmas experiences. I mean, I've had all kinds of Christmases, the amazing ones, the sad ones, the really buoyant, fun ones, the unpredictable ones, the stressful ones. And all of that has a place. It all has a place. So to just remember those Christmases and write about those Christmases that I know that we've all had, but knowing all of those classics inside and out and loving them. I mean, I love those classics, like using some of those colors from that palette, but speaking in my own voice. I just hope that some of these Christmas songs might wind up in that catalog of Christmas standards, but I don't want to like do an underground sounding Christmas album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by I don't want to reinvent it. But I'm just so compelled by songwriting. It's really, I mean, I loved doing a few classics on this new album. 'Tis the Season. There are 8 originals and 3 covers. And I loved doing Santa Baby. I loved doing Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and All Through the Night. I feel like I tried to make them as unique as possible and not like anybody else's versions out there. I mean, Santa Claus is Coming to Town definitely has that Phil Spector kind of vibe, but
Yeah, that wall of sound sort of. Yeah.
yeah, that wall of sound. And that was absolutely intentional. The songwriting is really, I mean, if I could just write songs every single day and have me record the ones that work for me and have a bunch of other people record the other ones, gosh, it would just be heaven on earth.
You know, one of the things that I love that you did capture and on Celebrate is a kind of theme that I don't see in a lot of Christmas music. And running the Sounds of Christmas, I get a lot of Christmas music every year.
Yeah.
But Welcome Home and Come In From the Cold immediately harkened me back to the end of A Christmas Carol when Scrooge shows up at his nephew's house and he's redeemed and he wants to be part of things again. And I'm surprised that isn't more prevalent in a lot of songs, but maybe it's just a hard thing to do. But I think you handle it really well in this.
Well, thank you. That's a big part of Christmas. I mean, sometimes you have to be really brave to come home. But that's what makes Christmas so tender. Welcome Home, that didn't have to be on a Christmas album per se, but it's such a Christmas time experience because we work so hard all year long. So the voice in that song is like your mother or your aunt saying, you know what, I've got you taken care of. You just talk to me. I've got your room set up. Just make yourself comfortable. Let's just see what's going on. And if I can help, I will. And that's the greatest gift for the world weary soul. And I have certainly walked a mile in those shoes.
Yeah,
many
I have
miles
too.
in those shoes. Yeah, I think we all have. It's part of the human experience. I mean,
that the classic Christmas Baby Please Come Home is, I guess, to a degree, has a little bit of that in it. But this really, that part of A Christmas Carol, when I get to that part, that's the part that always gets me. For most people, it's Tiny Tim, God Bless Us Everyone, or whatever adaptation you're watching that thing. But for me, when Scrooge gets invited to come in from the cold and be part of the family, that's the part that gets me every year. That's the part that I want for my Christmas. And that's what I got. That was the wonderful, warm gift that I got from those songs on Celebrate.
Oh, that's really, really beautiful. Yeah. I mean, it's all of Christmas is kind of like that. I mean, in a lot of ways, A Christmas Carol is very metaphorical because we forget during the year, we can kind of fall in and out of our own spirit. And Christmas welcomes you in from the cold and reminds you of who you are, and that it's not all about the hustle. It's not all about making money. It's a time to forget about the world. Forget about the world for a while, because the world is not the most important thing. So, and that's why A Christmas Carol is so powerful. Because we all have Scrooge in us. We all have a little bit of Tiny Tim. We all have Bob Cratchit. Yep. Yeah, they're archetypes in all of us. Yeah, but Come In From the Cold, I wrote that one for my mom. My mom has been my greatest support through the years. And interestingly enough, my dad has been, he's an extraordinary musician, but he did not want me to dedicate myself to this business the way that I have. But there was no question that this is what there's just no question that no matter what, I was just going to do it. Yeah. But for a long time, he's wonderful, and I have his support, but for a long time, it was kind of like, well, I told you so. I told you, and my mom was just going, you just got to keep going. I just sent you $500. And she's the one that was always so frustrated with all of the fickleness of his career in music. But when it came to me, it was like, honey, I know you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And whenever I'd be in really messy situations with, it's just really, there's a lot of big personalities in the music business. And there's a lot of that kind of, just patriarchal stuff a lot of times. And earlier in my career, I was always fighting the patriarchy, always, until I had enough credits that made my choices a little bit easier. It made my creative projects a little bit easier because I had some street cred. But getting to that point was absolutely harrowing. And I would talk to her because my dad would just get too upset, and I just stopped sharing anything with him altogether. But my mom would just say, I think this is how you need to approach it. Don't give them what they're looking for, which is an argument. You just need to, just so much great advice. She had managed a team. She worked in the medical field and managed the medical transcription department of a hospital for many years. So she had a lot of experience in managing personalities. So I had a lot of guidance from her, but sometimes it would just be like the big snot cries and drinking a full bottle of wine and a half and talking to her. And that song is really her just saying, can you just come on home, just pack your bags. Just come be with me. I've got your room ready. Just come home for a while. Just forget about it all, because it's destroying you. It really is destroying you. You've got to just hang it all up for a little bit. So, and now that I've got the film and TV credits and all of that, she is just like, well, I always knew that would happen. I wanted to go to music school. I did not want to. I was halfway done with my English lit degree, and I just was having a meltdown. I think I was 19 or 20. I said, Mom, I don't want to go through 2 more years with this degree. It's hard enough to get a job with an English lit degree. Why don't I just do music? I love that anyway. I don't care, And so she was one that said, okay, go to music school. Let's figure it out. And, my dad was going, well, don't come crying home to me. when you piss your life away, all of that kind of stuff, And my mom was going, well, I'm just going to, drive you down to Los Angeles and let's just get you into music school. And so that song is really like, God, thank God for my mother. I mean, it's got to be tough to see your kid choose this career path.
Oh, I'm sure. I know as a dad, I see my kids and I want things to be better for them than they were for me. And when I see them struggle, in part, I want to jump in and fix everything. And in part,
Sure.
I do feel like, I told you.
Yeah, I know.
I told you. What are you?
I know.
It's tough.
But don't you think your kids come in with some kind of blueprint that they just have to? I mean, life is a great teacher. And it's the experiential learning that really is what teaches you. So all you can do is warn them.
Yeah. All you can do is warn them. And just like we did to our parents, we're not going to listen to the warning. And,
right.
And you hope for the best. And that's what you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think being at this stage in life, when I talk to my dad about all of this stuff, and now we can talk about all this stuff. For years we couldn't, but he just says, I'm so glad to see you making the kind of music that you've always wanted to make. Somehow you have made this happen and you've accomplished, you're doing exactly what you want to do. And I'm glad that you didn't listen to me. All I could do was prepare you for the road as much as possible. But he's really proud of this music. And that means a lot to me.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. It's just hard, I think, when your kids are in the thick of it.
Oh, it is. It's very difficult to not want to swoop in and fix everything and also not go, I knew that was going to happen. I told you not to do that. I told you. And but they've got to, just like we did, they have to figure things out.
Yeah. They do. And when they do, then you get all the respect you were longing for.
Right. Yeah. On a lighter note, 'Tis the Season, the single that came out a couple years ago, a very happy, joyful Christmas tune. I think it was in Noel on Netflix, right?
It was in Noel. Noel is on Disney Plus. Yeah, it was in Noel, and it was also in a Victoria's Secret holiday ad in 2020, which was really cool.
Now, when you wrote that, was this part of what was going to be the next Christmas album, or was this just a one-off fun Christmas single to write?
Well, it's funny because we wrote that, John and I wrote that for the Celebrate album, and then we didn't have time to fully produce it for the Celebrate album because he works on Dancing with the Stars. He does a lot of the production and arranging for that show. And we were frantically trying to finish it, to put it on the Celebrate album. And we just didn't have time. So I think in 2019, I finished up the vocals, did all the background vocals, and John and I just produced it by sending files back and forth because he was in the middle of a move. And I wasn't sure when I'd be making another Christmas album. So I decided to put it out as a single. And then late 2019, early 2020, we had all of those whisperings of the pandemic. And I just socked in and I'm going to do another Christmas song. And then that became, I'm going to do another Christmas song and another one. And then it was like, okay, I'm just doing an album, I guess. So I put out 'Tis the Season. I named that I just thought it was a great album title. Maybe in retrospect, I should have called this new album Wonderland of Winter, but 'Tis the Season sounded more fun. So yeah, that 'Tis the Season was the first song that kind of jump-started this new album.
And Marry Me for Christmas, it seems like if you haven't already done so, that one should be going over to Hallmark, right?
Yes. Yes, it has gone over to Hallmark many times. I haven't received a response yet, but I do have a really great working relationship with a director and producer who makes a lot of movies for them, and he loves the song. So I'm hoping that he might use it in something next year, but we'll see. I mean, sometimes I don't know why, but the incubation stage seems to be 2 years or 3 years before directors and music supervisors can actually put a song that they've received into their movies. It seems to take a while for it to find a home. But yeah, I love "Marry Me for Christmas." That's probably my favorite song on this new album.
I'm always hesitant to ask that, especially of somebody who sings and writes their music, because I know it's a little bit like, which is your favorite child?
I know. Yeah, I just loved the writing experience of that. I can't tell you. It's really hard to describe it. I just see that the whole thing so vividly in my mind, and it wrote itself so quickly. And that kind of triplet feel, dun, 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 that all of that is so Brill building, Carole King. But there's not another song out there like it. So I know that it completely came from my own reservoir. I loved writing it. I loved listening to it. I love how John played the piano on that track. It's really light and pillowy, and it just feels like you're just kind of like slowly drifting along a river with the wind kind of like just blowing on your back just enough to just kind of gently swoop you down the river. I love that one.
One of the most interesting things I have found with your new album, "'Tis the Season," is that because of the nature of my doing the Sounds of Christmas, I am in touch with, in communication with, hanging out with a lot of Christmas music weirdos like me who are just all about the Christmas music. Many of them do blogs about music. My apologies to anybody, by the way, who fits this description, who's upset that I called us weirdos. But what I have found is everybody who has talked about this album has a different favorite track that evokes that wonderful magic of Christmas.
Oh, wow.
I saw somebody talking about Wonderland of Winter and how they could just feel being outside as a kid with their arms out and it's starting to snow and they're just sort of spinning around and they get that sort of magic feeling. And for somebody else, it was the Old Red Sleigh and the nostalgia that comes with that. I know for me, because of the Christmas Carol themes we've talked about, Please Come Home is a big one for me. But it has been like that with so many different people. The only reason that I'm saying this is for anybody who's listening to this and isn't familiar with either Rhea's work or this new album, I would encourage you to go give it a listen, because you are going to find a song on this that makes it feel like Christmas for you. And I don't get to say that often, because there are a lot of, and I'm sure you know this too, there are a lot of people who churn out Christmas music because they feel like they should, or because somebody, an agent or a record producer or a radio guy is telling them that they should do this, so they do it. But there isn't that Christmas heart in it. And that really comes through on every song on this album.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Well, it really, all of them come from the heart. They all come from the heart. I mean, I remember as a kid hearing Christmas music for the first time, like Sleigh Ride. And it was just like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I have to hear that again. And I need to go on a sleigh ride. Just like a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I mean, I love Christmas music, but I love that feeling of Christmas. And you know, it's an honor to make this music. I mean, at first I wondered if I could do it, and then it was just the most natural thing. I'm so glad to hear that people have chosen different songs. You know, it's such a bummer when you put out a record and everybody goes, I really love that one song.
Yeah. 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 And a lot of times when that happens, it's one song that doesn't sound anything like anything else that's on that album. That one song. I really like that one song. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess that I gotta get better then.
Okay. So I know you have other projects in the works that you've already mentioned, but since I've already outed myself as a Christmas music weirdo, I have to ask, is there more Christmas music coming?
There's always more Christmas music.
I love to hear that.
There's always more Christmas music. I mean, I would love to, I'd love to put out a couple new Christmas songs every year, or, you know, an EP every year. I just don't want to repeat myself. So I start thinking about, okay, well, what's another side of Christmas that I haven't explored? So that has to be clear in my mind. So I'm thinking about what's coming next. But yeah, I do have several Christmas songs that I haven't recorded yet that I would love to record. So it's a matter of just finding the right producer to work with, and you know, who's up for the job. I mean, it was so great to make this record during a time when all the musicians were in town, and I worked with a guy named Tom Keene who was not very busy because of the pandemic, and we could get it done. But making Christmas music is not like, I mean, for me anyway, for the kind of Christmas music that I want to make, it needs to be really well done. I just feel like I can't just work with anybody. It has to be with a producer who's really a masterful arranger. So, and they need to be available.
Right. So. Well, and from what I know of you and my experience with your music, I know that I'm not going to get some churned out version of Jingle Bell Rock next year.
No.
And I should say, I have nothing against Jingle Bell Rock. So save your emails, everybody. I like Jingle Bell Rock. But what I just mean is that you're not going to go, oh, it's getting to be fall's coming. I need to put a Christmas song out. Let's do Jingle Bell Rock. That's not going to happen.
And I found that. I mean, I've had producers reach out to me who make a lot of music for film and TV, and you know, they say, well, you know, it's about June. So, you know, I wanted to see if you wanted to do a Christmas song. I was thinking about doing, you know, this or that. And it's like, there's not really enough time. And if we're not intentional, then we're going to rush it through. So I think I'll pass. But I mean, because I like to get the songs written and really understand how I want them to sound, and really find the right person to work with on things. And I just work very differently. But yeah, there is that. There's a lot of that. Oh, I put out a Christmas song and here it is. And yeah, it's crazy, because I just think that especially if you're putting out Christmas music, it should be really intentional and really good.
No, and that's another thing. And I've said this a few times to other artists as well. When you listen to songs on 'Tis the Season, you get the feeling that Rhea is singing something that matters to her. And that Christmas is important, and whatever particular song you're listening to, that matters. And you can feel that. And you don't always get that with, you know, not to pick on Jingle Bell Rock again, but you know, if somebody churns that out, you don't always get that. And there are great versions of Jingle Bell Rock. Don't get me wrong. You can sometimes listen to it. You can feel like, you know, that whoever's singing that is smiling, that they're having a good time doing that. You know, you hear that version that Hall & Oates did about, oh God, it's probably been 40 years, but you hear the Hall & Oates version of Jingle Bell Rock, and you get the feeling that they were having a good time when they did that. And
yeah, I like to, it's so important when you're singing something to really envision every single word in your mind. I mean, you've got to, for me, I I see the whole thing in my mind as I'm singing it. And it's just like with musicians. I mean, sometimes, and I've always been this way, but when a musician is playing something and it sounds really good, it sounds good, but it's not the right part. It's like it's just not the right part. So like when I'm in the studio, I like to say, let's change that melody here to that and bring it more of a, don't put the vibrato on that sax. Let's just make it like a Clarence Clemens kind of thing. Because in my mind, I'm seeing the party. Like Jingle Bell Rock to me is a song that it was like a rockabilly era where those prim and proper Christmases were kind of, the kids were coming up with a new thing. It was like, let's be crazy. Let's be, forget the paper napkins, let's have a bear, and rock out. And it's Jingle Bell Rock. And so I pictured that's the party that I see in my mind with that. So you get into that scene in your mind, but if you just sing it to get through it, you're not, and you're just hitting the notes, but you have no picture in your mind of being at that party and participating in that party. You can feel it. And I know it because I record my own vocals on the whole 'Tis the Season record. I recorded my own leads, and I prefer it that way because usually when a producer is recording my vocals, they're going, yeah, that sounded good. Let's use that. I'm going, yeah, no, but it sounds good, but it's not the right part. It's not the right, I wasn't in the right frame of mind and it didn't come across. Let me focus in here and get it. I got to feel that party. I got to feel that. I have to know what I'm seeing. I have to see it all. And then it will come through me. So I think that's what some people do. It's like, and it's kind of a session singery thing too. Like a lot of session singers will they hit all the right things and whatever, but you don't feel it.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I'm curious for what you'll have to say about it. I'm looking on Spotify right now at your discography, and there's 3 albums and a couple singles, and there's more Christmas music than not.
Yeah.
Do you ever get concerned of being typecast as a Christmas music singer?
No. I mean, I've got a lot of music that I'm going to put out soon that is not Christmas, but I think I just, like you said in the beginning, I didn't want to interrupt, but Christmas music allows me to explore and to use the best of my musical wheelhouse because it's not limited by genre. And it's so much about all of us, and it's about the human experience. And I like writing songs about the human experience, and I tend to run deep, which is not the most popular, way to be. I love hooks. I love all of that. But just over the past 10 years, everything has been about using the octave, using it's the melodies are very predictable, which is a little bit boring to me. So with Christmas music, it's so melodic. You really can get into the melodies, and the arrangements can be so musical. It's a chance for me to make something that's really beautiful, really musically lush, and not be limited to any one genre, and create music that we all can relate to. I don't want to be limited to just Christmas music, even though I think Christmas music actually is not limiting. I think it's very liberating to do because your palette is so wide. But I'm not worried about that because I have so much music that's non-seasonal that I'm planning to put out. But over these past 4 or 5 years, I just have written so much Christmas music because it was so much fun to do that I just wrote so much of it. So I know it's like so much. I mean, I think between these two, it's like 21 Christmas songs in all over the past 2 years. That's a lot. But oh well, it's,
I feel like
I'm happy to put it out.
I feel like saying that's a lot, and also more, please.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, you've got more coming. Don't you worry.
Oh, good. Rhea, what's the best way for people to keep up with you? Is it through your website, through Facebook, Instagram?
Facebook, Instagram, of course. I'm also on Twitter. Through my website is great if people want to kind of really stay in closer contact. I put out a really cool like blog / newsletter every month. And I've put out a lot of the Christmas blogs. If you sign up and subscribe to that Friends of Rhea community, I'll keep in touch often, and we go back and forth on emails. I love hearing from friends and followers. I mean, we share recipes and do goofy, nerdy stuff like that. It's great.
And when people sign up, they get some free music too, right?
Yeah, get 3 free tracks.
Cool. RehyaStevens.com is the website, and it's RehyaStevens.com. And when you go there, you'll see the sign up for the newsletter that Rhea was just talking about. And if you scroll down, there are links so you can go everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, CD Baby. It's all right there. So go and check it out. And now that we're coming to the end of this podcast, you can go now. So you should do that. Rhea, thank you so much for spending so much time with us today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Ken, thank you for having me. Thank you for your support. It means the world to me.
You are very welcome. Happy to. And thank you so much for listening, helping us share some Christmas spirit, and for helping this podcast continue to grow. Since you're listening now, you've obviously found us somewhere. But if there's another site you like to use for podcasts, check out our podcast page on our website for the complete list of everywhere you can listen to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. And the website is soundsofchristmas.com. Then just click on the podcast tab. For the Sounds of Christmas station to listen to the music, you'll need to stick with our website or our app in the Google Play Store. If you have comments or suggestions, feel free to reach out to me on social media or through the website. Thanks again. And may you always believe in Santa Claus.